Good morning, friends. I'm here to read you chapter 6 of Roscoe Riley Rules. Hey, we got Maxie here who's going to read with us. He loves reading books or listening to reading books. It's one of his favorite things to do. Chapter 6, The Secret Handshake. When I got to my class, my friends Gus and Emma ran over to say hello. The first thing we did was our secret handshake. Here's how it goes, in case you'd like to try it. 1. Scream each other's names. 2. Wait for the teacher to say, "Inside voices, please." 3. Do a high five. 4. Do a low five. 5. Stick out your tongue. And 6. Get all serious and say, "How do you do, Mr. Riley?" Of course, you would not say Riley, probably. It would be pretty amazing if we had the same last name. Emma pointed to my elbows. Cool, sparkly Band-Aid, Roscoe. I mostly always have a Band-Aid on me somewhere, or a cast or a sling. Mom says to think of it all as a fashion statement. When I was 4, I even had an eye patch, and the eye patch was black. Totally pirate. "How'd you get a Band-Aid?" Gus asked. "Racing my Hot Wheels cars down the stairs," I said. "The Hot Wheels won." "Household accidents are the most common cause of injuries in children," said Emma. "Emma teaches me a lot of interesting facts. She was born in China. Her parents adopted her when she was a baby. I wish I was born in China instead of just Kalamazoo." Gus teaches me lots of useful things too. Just last week he showed me how to make armpit farts. "What's in the bag, Roscoe?" Emma asked. "Art stuff for Miss Diaz, I said. I opened the bag. Gus and Emma peeked inside. "Cool head," Gus said. "Her name is Drusilla," I said, "before I brain surgeryed her." "Super mega gonzo glue," Gus said. "Well, my mom won't let me near that stuff." "Me either," said Emma. "Me either," I said, "but I figure Miss Diz could use it for when we broke stuff. Let's go show her what I brought." Miss Diz was busy stapling butterfly pictures to the bulletin board. Miss Diz isn't really her name. Her real name is hard to say. It uses maybe half of the alphabet. So she cut off the N for my class. Maybe when I'm grown up, I'll be called Mr. Rye for short. Or not. I handed Miss Diz the bag of art supplies. "Thank you," I said. There she is. "It's for the art cupboard. There's special glue in there, and I even included a free head." Miss Diz frowned. "What kind of head, Roscoe?" "Just a doll head." I smiled so she wouldn't worry. Since Miss Diz is new, she gets mixed up sometimes. I try to help her out whenever I can. After all, I was a kindergartner last year, so I already know everything there is to know about school. For example, when Miss Diz forgot the janitor's name, I remembered it was Mr. McGeely. She had to call him when Gus threw up his ravioli after lunch. Sometimes Miss Diz looks pretty pooped by the end of the day. I hope she didn't decide to go into another line of work. My kindergarten teacher did that. It wasn't my fault. Probably. Although I think maybe she got a little frustrated when I painted the class hamster green because it was St. Patrick's Day. Hamsters like to look perky for the holidays. Miss Diz checked her watch. "Class," she said in a loud voice. She put a finger on her lips. That means shh. I know you're all excited about the open house today," said Miss Diz. "We are going to have a dress rehearsal first thing this morning." Dress rehearsal is when you practice with costumes and stuff. It doesn't mean you have to wear a dress. Let's just hope things go a little better than they did yesterday. Miss Diz said with a laugh. I'm sure today we'll be on our best behavior. Poor old brand new Miss Diz. I think maybe she forgot about our high spirits. Mess rehearsal. First, I want you bees to put on your antennae, said Miss Diz. Real bees use their head bobbles to smell and feel things. But ours were just made out of pipe cleaners and styrofoam balls with glitter on them. They were attached to plastic headbands. Headband thingy, shaped like a great big upside down U. Last year, the third graders used the baubles for a play about butterflies, so the headbands were a little stretched out by their gigantic third grade heads. When we were ready, Miss Diz went to the music cupboard. She handed each drummer 2 red tapping sticks. We use the sticks for music time. They are our instruments. Oh, really? I would rather have a drum set or a tuba. I know how much fun sticks are, children, said Miss Diz, but as you may recall, some of you got a little carried away yesterday. I think maybe she was looking at me, but I wasn't the only one who got in stick trouble. Gus was the one who started to pretend sword fight. I was not guilty, mostly. Our rhythm section sits in the chairs, said Miss Diz, nice and still. That was me and Gus and Dwan and Maria and Coco. All the other bees in the back row, said Miss Diz, standing up nice and tall. We got into our places. Bees and bee drummers, baubles and sticks. We were ready for action. Okay, let's sing nice and clear, said Miss Diz, and no poking with the sticks. How about swords? Dwan asked. No swords, said Miss Diz. How about death rays? Gus asked. No death rays, said Miss Diz. When I count to 3, start singing. Here is how our bee song goes. Buzzy bees, fuzzy bees, look at us fly. Bees are the best bugs. You want to know why? We make our own honey and soar in the sky. Can you do what we do? We dare you to try. Good job, said Miss Diz. When we were done, Roscoe, you sounded especially wonderful, but we need to hear the other kids too. He's blowing out my eardrums, Miss Diz, Coco complained. My head bobbles keep falling off, Wyatt said. Miss Diz took a deep breath. I know the antenna don't fit very well, children. Just do the best you can. Let's try the song one more time. This time, let me hear those sticks pounding out the rhythm. We sang again. I was not so loud this time, but if you ask me, they were missing out. Better, said Miss Diz, when we were done. There he is, belting out his song. My baubles kept falling in my eyes, Hasten said. Oh dear, said Miss Diz. Maybe we should just forget about the antenna. But we have to have baubles, Coco said. Otherwise, how will our parents know we're bees? You make a good point, Coco. Hasten, bring me your antenna, said Miss Diz. Maybe I can tighten them up a little. While Miss Diz worked on Hasten's baubles, Maria started tapping her sticks. Dwan tapped along. Gus tapped too. On my head. Children, said Miss Diz. She was still trying to fix Hasten's baubles. No tapping, please. We sat and waited. While we sat there, I came up with a new invention. I put the rhythm sticks in my mouth. I made them point straight down. Ta-da! Walrus teeth! I think when I grow up, I may be a famous inventor, or else an ice cream truck deliverer. Dwan and Gus laughed at my walrus teeth. Maria put her sticks on her head. She looked just like an alien. Oh, there's Tegan. There's all the kids. Tegan, are you going to say hi? Say hi. Are you going to read with us? Even more people laughed. Gus put his sticks up his nose. He just looked gross. Pretty soon, we were all tapping and laughing and being walruses and aliens, except Gus. He just kept the sticks in his nose. Children, said Miss Diz loudly, but we couldn't hear her very well. With all the tapping and laughing, Gus held up one of his nose sticks. I challenge you to a duel, he cried. Yuck, said Coco. I jumped up on my chair. So did Gus. You can't sword fight sitting down. We sort of forgot about the no sword fighting rule. Uh-oh. Who do you think's walking in right now while they're sword fighting? He doesn't look too happy. Roscoe! Gus! Children! Miss Diz held up her hand to put a finger to her lips. Quiet down now! We got very quiet. Gus and I froze on our chairs. Miss Diz pointed to the doorway. Mr. Goosegarden was standing there. He's the principal. That is the big boss of school. He is mostly nice, unless you've been making bad choices. Then you have to sit in his office and think about your behavior. And when that happens, Mr. Goosegarden wears his business face. And right now, Mr. Goosegarden had on his I really mean business face. How to Speak Teacher, Chapter 8. Children, said Mr. Goosegarden, I certainly hope you don't disappoint your parents with this kind of rowdy behavior at open house. Coco raised her head. Roscoe started it, Mr. Goosegarden, she said. He made walrus teeth. Coco was not really being helpful. If you ask me, I'm sure Roscoe will remember that walrus teeth are not appropriate, said Mr. Goosegarden, and that chairs are for sitting, not sword fighting. He winked at me. Mr. Goosegarden and I go way back. Sorry, I said. I didn't know there was a no walrus teeth rule. That's okay, Roscoe, said Mr. Goosegarden. I know you will come through this afternoon. He smiled at Miss Diz. Don't worry, he said. The first year of teaching is always the hardest. Mr. Goosegarden waved goodbye. The door closed behind him. Miss Diz sighed. She looked at the clock on the wall. It's way past our reading groups. Let's take off the head bobbles. Antenna. Just do your best this afternoon. She sounded sort of worn out. I felt bad about the walrus teeth incident. Like I said before, kids have so many rules to remember. There are a gazillion things that we're not supposed to do. Who knew making walrus teeth was one of them? After putting away the head bobbles and the sticks, we sat at the tables for reading groups. Reading was fun, but it can be very hard work. You can get pretty thirsty trying to make those letters into words. After I read 4 whole sentences, sounds like you guys, I went to the water fountain to get a drink. The fountain is next to the art cupboard. Just then, Mr. Frisbee came in. He is the kindergarten teacher. May I borrow some chalk? Mr. Frisbee asked Miss Diz. Sure, said Miss Diz. She opened the art cupboard. I could see the art supplies I had brought, including Drusilla's head and the don't you dare glue. Miss Diz gave Mr. Frisbee a fresh box of chalk. Here you go, she said. How was the dress rehearsal? Mr. Frisbee asked. Miss Diz whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she laughed. At this rate, I'll be looking for another job soon. They both laughed, but I was pretty sure it was a worried laugh. Maybe you are wondering how I could tell. After all, teachers can be confusing. Not as confusing as parents, but still, sometimes teachers have trouble expressing themselves. Fortunately, I have served in preschool and kindergarten already. Also, Mommy and Me music and Jimborama, and my clay class Pots for Tots. So I'm happy to explain teacher stuff for you. Here goes my goof-proof Roscoe Riley teacher translator. This one. I told you not to feed glitter to the goldfish. Really, really, shh. Take the Play-Doh out of your ear this instant. I quit, just like the teacher in kindergarten. It's pretty easy to understand teachers once you get the hang of it. I'm still working on figuring out how to speak parrot, though. I thought about what Miss Diz had said to Mr. Frisbee. At this rate, I'll be looking for another job soon. What if Mr. Goose Garden fired Miss Diz? Just because of our rowdy behavior. That would be awful. After all, Miss Diz is a great teacher, even if she is just a beginner. Then I thought about my kindergarten teacher from last year, the one who changed jobs after I painted the hamster. She works in an office now, with no kids in it, and no green hamsters. How boring is that? I could not let such a horrible thing happen to Miss Diz. We're going to pause right there. What do you think Roscoe's going to do? It sounds like he's up to something. He's got an idea. We'll see what happens.